This famous singer thought he was about to embarrass a young black girl on stage. But 10 seconds later, the entire hall was in tears. Silence filled the grand music hall. Her hands trembled as she clutched the microphone. Her shoulders were stiff, her throat dry. She could feel the weight of judgment before she heard a single word. Behind her, the famous singer smiled smugly as he slowly stepped back from the microphone. His movements were confident, relaxed, like a man who knew he owned the room. "Go on," he said coldly, tilting his head slightly. "Sing it alone." A ripple moved through the audience. The crowd thought this was a joke. Some laughed nervously. Some whispered to each other. Some leaned back in their seats, already expecting failure. No one believed she was about to do something unforgettable. Not even her. Her name was Lena. She wasn't famous. She didn't have a record deal. She didn't have a stylist, a manager, or a fan base cheering her name. She didn't even belong on that stage. At least, that's what they believed. Lena had been invited as part of a background choir, meant to stay unseen and unheard. Just another face in the shadows. Just another voice blending into the crowd. She was never supposed to stand alone under those lights. But now she was. The man who forced her to sing solo was a global superstar, a name known across continents. His voice played on radios, in stadiums, and on billboards across the world. Millions of fans followed him. Sold-out stadiums filled his schedule. Awards lined the walls of his mansion like trophies of power. And tonight, he wanted to mock her. He had noticed her during rehearsals, not because she was weak, but because her voice carried something raw, something unpolished, something real. And instead of being impressed, his ego felt challenged. So he turned her moment into a test, a trap disguised as entertainment. Lena swallowed hard. Her mind screamed at her to run, to disappear back into the safety of the choir. She could already imagine the headlines, the laughter, the embarrassment if she failed. But somewhere beneath the fear, another feeling stirred, a quiet strength. She had sung in places far lonelier than this stage. She had sung through hunger, through rejection, through nights when the world seemed determined to break her spirit. This moment terrified her, but it didn't own her. The hall waited, and Lena took a breath. Earlier that evening, Lena had been invited as part of a backup choir for a charity concert. It wasn't a big opportunity. It wasn't a spotlight moment. She was told she wouldn't be seen. She wouldn't be heard individually. Her name wouldn't be mentioned. Just blend in, they said. Stand behind the lead singer. Match the harmony. Smile when told. Leave quietly when it's over. And Lena agreed. She was grateful just to be there. Grateful for the chance to stand on a real stage, even if it meant staying invisible. She wore the same plain outfit as the others, tied her hair back, and reminded herself not to draw attention. But when rehearsals began, something unexpected happened. The famous singer noticed her voice, not because it was weak, not because it was off-key, because it was different. Her voice didn't beg for attention. It didn't try to impress. It carried weight, depth, control. Every note came from somewhere honest, somewhere lived in, deep, controlled, powerful. At first, he glanced back once. Then again. The more Lena sang, the tighter his jaw became. Instead of praising her, his ego felt threatened. He had built his career being the strongest voice in every room. And now, hidden behind him, was a girl who didn't even realize how dangerous her talent was. During the live show, without warning, he changed the plan. No discussion, no rehearsal, no permission. Mid-performance, he stepped away from the mic and turned toward the audience with a laugh that sounded playful, but wasn't. "Let's hear what real talent sounds like," he said sarcastically. A few people chuckled. Then he looked directly at Lena. "Why don't you sing this part alone?" The lights shifted instantly. Bright, harsh, unforgiving. The choir froze, their faces tight with shock. This wasn't part of the arrangement. This wasn't fair. Lena's heart slammed against her chest. This wasn't encouragement. This wasn't opportunity. This was a trap. He chose the hardest note in the entire song, a note buried deep in the chorus, one that most singers avoid or lower during live performances. A note even professionals fear. The crowd leaned forward. Some expected her voice to crack. Some waited for the moment she'd miss it. Some were already preparing to laugh. They expected embarrassment. Even Lena believed she might fail. Her mouth went dry. Her hands trembled. She could feel the spotlight burning, exposing every doubt she'd ever had about herself. But what they didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was where her voice came from. It didn't come from training rooms or vocal coaches. It didn't come from fame or applause. It came from struggle, from pain, from survival. And that made all the difference. Lena grew up in a small, forgotten neighborhood. The kind of place people pass by without slowing down. Cracked sidewalks, old buildings, dreams that learned to stay quiet. There were no music schools there, no bright studios, no posters promising fame, no expensive lessons, no fancy microphones, no connections. Her mother worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. She left home before sunrise and came back exhausted, her hands rough from labor, her eyes heavy with worry. Her father was gone. No goodbye, no explanation, just an empty space that never quite healed. Music was never a dream Lena talked about. It felt too big, too impossible. Instead, music became her escape. She sang while washing dishes, her voice echoing softly in the kitchen. She sang while sweeping floors, while folding laundry, while walking home under broken streetlights. At night, when the house was quiet and the world felt heavy, she sang into her pillow so no one would hear her cry. She sang to survive. Every insult she heard at school, every laugh that followed her voice, every rejection that told her she wasn't enough. She poured it all into her singing. Her voice carried pain because her life had taught her pain. It carried strength because she had learned to stand alone. Each note held a story she never spoke out loud. People had laughed at her before. Classmates mocked her when she sang too loud. Teachers told her to tone it down, to stop drawing attention. One even said her voice was too much for a classroom, like it was something to be ashamed of. Producers dismissed her without listening fully. This isn't marketable, they said. It doesn't fit the industry. Some are more blunt. Girls like you don't sell. Each word cut deep. But Lena kept singing. Not because she believed them wrong, but because singing was the only place she felt honest. When she sang, the noise in her head went quiet. The fear softened. The loneliness loosened its grip. In music, she wasn't invisible. She wasn't judged. She was free. Now, standing alone on that stage, everything came rushing back. The spotlight burned into her skin, hot and unforgiving. The silence pressed in from every direction. Thousands of faces waited, ready to decide her worth in a single moment. Her knees felt weak, but instead of fear, memories filled her chest. Every night, she sang through tears. Every door closed in her face. Every time she chose to keep going. She remembered her mother's tired smile, the empty space where her father should have been, the quiet strength she'd built when no one was watching. Lena closed her eyes. She shut out the crowd, the singer, the judgment. She took one deep breath, and she sang, not to impress, not to prove anything, but because this was who she was. And for the first time, the world was about to hear it. The first note came out soft, so soft it barely seemed real. A fragile sound floating into the vast space of the hall. It was almost a whisper, gentle enough to make people lean forward in their seats without realizing it. The audience leaned in. Then suddenly, her voice rose. Not rushed, not forced. It rose with purpose. Clear, powerful, perfectly controlled. The sound filled the room like a wave, washing over every seat, every wall, every doubt. It wasn't loud for the sake of being loud. It was precise, steady, fearless. Gasps echoed across the hall. People looked at each other, eyes wide, mouths slightly open. This wasn't what they expected. This wasn't what they had prepared themselves to hear. She reached the note everyone feared, and she didn't just touch it. She hit it. Not barely, not shakily, not hanging on by hope. She owned it. Her voice locked onto the note and held it there, strong and unbreakable, as if it belonged to her all along. The sound didn't crack. It didn't waver. It soared. Then she went higher. A breathless silence followed as her voice climbed beyond the limits of the song, beyond what anyone in that room thought possible. The famous singer's smile vanished. The playful confidence drained from his face. His eyes widened, his jaw tightened. This was the same note he had avoided for years during live performances. The same note he had rewritten, lowered, or skipped entirely. And she climbed past it effortlessly, as if fear had never existed, as if that note had been waiting for her. The crowd stood up without realizing it, one by one, then all at once. Phones lifted into the air, screens glowing like stars. People forgot to record properly. Some hands shook too much. Some people simply stared, unable to look away. Eyes widened, breaths caught. Some people cried, not loud sobs, quiet tears that surprised even themselves. Tears pulled out by something real, something honest that reached deep inside them. This wasn't just singing. This was truth. Her voice carried pain from nights spent alone, strength built through rejection, history shaped by struggle, and pride that refused to be broken. Every note told a story she never spoke with words. As the final sound faded, Lena lowered the microphone. When she finished, there was silence. Not awkward, not confused, a sacred silence. Then, an explosion of applause. The hall erupted. Cheers thundered. People shouted her name without even knowing it. Hands clapped until they hurt. The sound rolled like a storm. The famous singer tried to laugh it off. He clapped too. He nodded. He forced a smile. But his eyes told the truth. Shock, disbelief, regret. Because in that moment, standing under those lights, he knew he had never sung like that. Not once. And the girl he tried to mock had just done something unforgettable. That night changed everything. What began as a moment of quiet humiliation turned into something no one could have predicted. Before the concert hall had even emptied, phones were already buzzing. Clips of Lena's performance were being uploaded, shared, and replayed again and again. Within hours, the video went viral. Millions watched the moment. Mockery turned into magic. People from different countries, cultures, and backgrounds stopped scrolling and listened. They didn't just hear her voice. They felt it. Comments flooded in. People wrote about their own struggles, their own moments of being underestimated. Many said they had never cried over a stranger's voice before. Others said the clip reminded them of dreams they had buried long ago. Record labels called. Not quietly, not cautiously. They called urgently. Emails followed. Messages stacked up. Invitations poured in. Producers wanted meetings. Talent scouts wanted contracts. Stages that once felt unreachable suddenly opened their doors to her. Interviews followed. Lena sat under studio lights instead of stage lights now, answering questions from hosts who spoke her name with respect. They asked about her voice, her background, her future. But the question everyone wanted answered was the same. What were you thinking in that moment? The most powerful moment came when Lena was asked about that night, about the singer who tried to put her on the spot, about the fear, the pressure, the humiliation. She didn't look angry. She didn't look bitter. She smiled calmly and said, "You try to silence me with fear, but fear taught me how to sing." The room went quiet. Those words spread almost as fast as her performance. They were quoted, shared, printed on posts and captions around the world. Because they spoke to something deeper than music. They spoke to survival. As for the famous singer, he issued a short apology. No long explanation. No excuses. No justifications. Just a few carefully chosen words. Because deep down, he knew this wasn't about a mistake on stage. It wasn't about a bad joke gone wrong. It was about pride meeting truth. He didn't lose to a girl. He didn't lose to a moment. He lost to honesty, to raw talent untouched by ego. to a voice shaped by struggle rather than comfort. And Lena? She didn't become famous overnight because of luck. She became unforgettable because she stayed true to herself when the world expected her to break. She didn't just hit a note he never could. She hit something far greater, a moment that reminded millions of people that power doesn't always come from status, that greatness doesn't ask for permission, and that sometimes the voices the world tries hardest to silence are the ones it needs to hear the most. And that is a moment the world will never forget.